So hello everyone, this is Sage and welcome to the Executive Corner, the expert talks by Macfarlane TV, where we have special guests share their valuable insights in a 20-minute roundup. And today's special guest is Mr. Matt Macfarlane, the CEO and Board Director at Icetana Ltd. So to give you some background, Icetana Ltd trades on the ASX with the ticker code ICE, and it is a global SaaS or SaaS software company providing video analytics solutions designed to automatically identify anomalous actions in real time for large-scale surveillance networks. And this software integrates with the customer's existing video management systems and IP cameras easily. So in today's show, bringing you via Macfarlane TV, we have Mr. Matt Macfarlane, CEO and Board Director at Icetana Ltd. Welcome to the show, Matt. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, we better make the best use of your time that we have together. So firstly, Matt, could you guide us through what is meant by the next generation surveillance system and how exactly is it different from the conventional ones on the market?
Sure. So at the moment, surveillance systems, when you're talking about video surveillance, which is the area we work in, it's principally used to record footage and then for you to scan through that footage after an event has happened, or alternatively to respond to an incident as it's taking place. So let's say that you have a university campus and there's a protest going on, and the people in the control room who are monitoring the cameras that surveil all of the university campus will keep an eye on that protest as they're moving through the university. That's a classic kind of incident situation. That's how control rooms tend to operate live surveillance currently. Other than that, let's say that an incident takes place on the campus and somebody reports that there was some violence or something like that. They would scan through historical footage to see if they could identify the perpetrators. Perhaps it might have been some graffiti or something similar. So many surveillance systems at the moment are used for those two purposes principally. And in the control rooms where these security surveillance cameras are coming into a central monitoring station with large screens, as you might see on CSI or some sort of program like that, it's very seldom that within the control room you find out about the incident as it's taking place. Okay. That's because most surveillance cameras are set to do motion detection, which means any kind of movement in front of the camera would display the results of those cameras in the control room. And what Icetana does, and what advanced analytics are starting to do in the AI space in particular, is reduce the amount of footage that goes into the control room to only those things which are very unusual or very interesting. Now, with a advanced surveillance system, you can set things like tripwires or no-go zones. So if somebody's climbing over the top of the fence, you can trigger that as an event. Or if some group is loitering in a particular area where you're not expecting people to be standing, you might also have that pop up within a screen in the control room. Now, what Icetana does is we go one step further than that. We use our AI systems to learn what is normal. In other words, the system monitors what's going on within the cameras for up to 2 weeks to learn and create a model of understanding of typical movement within the front of every single individual camera. So we create a model for every camera. And then when something unusual is taking place, be it movement or people doing unusual things, we allow that to pop up in the control room so that operators can turn their attention to it and then use their human brain to determine, is that something I need to respond to, or is that something I can just let slide? And it's, it might be a maintenance crew doing a bit of work because they're not used to seeing people carrying ladders around. At the same time, it might be a fight breaking out between two people. So with Icetana, you can start to turn your control room into an area where real-time events can be responded to very rapidly. Okay, so that gives you a rough idea of how surveillance systems are changing from historic reporting and instant control through to proactively identifying events as they're happening in the real world.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Matt. And it sounds really similar to some of the behavioural analytics that's used in cybersecurity AI as well. So it's
Absolutely,
great to...
Yeah.
Well,
so in the cybersecurity space, they might be looking at people trying to enter their network, or false entries of passwords, or excessive traffic on particular network nodes. With Icetana and with video analytics, it's all about what's going on in front of the video and understanding that. And it's a very exciting space at the moment.
Absolutely, AI is expanding at a great pace, and Icetana is at the center of it, working with these surveillance cameras. And I think it's becoming more and more important to the local councils as well, that these cameras are capturing the right data, and you're making the process more efficient for your clients, obviously through your offerings. So Matt, please now talk about the recent research done at Icetana in order to optimize the surveillance anomaly detection. Can we know a little bit more about that?
Sure, absolutely. So our company was formed 10 years ago as a spin out from Curtin University. So the research that went into the core product was actually done by, computer maths boffins out of the university. And from that, the company was spun out and created. Now that was 10 years ago. We've learned a lot in field, understanding real world environments. We've used that technology to constantly enhance the product. But there's been some enormous leaps forward in the last 6 or 9 months, actually, as people increasingly get into the space of doing research about understanding what's happening in front of cameras, and particularly for autonomous vehicles. So if you look at what's happening in the autonomous vehicle space, you've got a series of cameras or LiDAR devices, and these need to understand the context that's going on around the car so that that car can increase through various different levels of autonomy. Now that understanding, that research that goes into knowing, is that a person standing on the side of the road? Is that a person riding on a bike? What speed are they moving at? That kind of thing is all technology that's coming out of universities now, not only out of places like Tesla, but also from the university researchers who are increasingly turning their attention to this. That is a huge opportunity for us. So on the back of all that research and papers being submitted to understand vision in front of cameras, we're starting to build on that and put it into a revised, updated version of our product so that it operates within the security surveillance space. So you can imagine that going from just understanding weird movement patterns to understanding how is somebody standing, what is their pose, have they got their fists up, are they kicking somebody, is somebody actually, have they fallen over within a shopping mall, or is somebody tumbling down an escalator? You can get much more deep and rich metadata out of what's going on in video these days because of the research that's going on in this space. As well as that, of course, there's huge leaps going ahead in the hardware space in terms of how AI is processed. So the chips that are coming out of people like NVIDIA to be able to process huge amounts of data very, very efficiently, to train neural network models which might learn that normal movement pattern and then report the anomalous. It's just a super exciting space, and it's something that Icetana's team, we probably spend 60% of our funding right now in making sure that we are building an absolutely cutting edge technology product for this particular space.
That's fantastic to hear, Matt, and thanks for sharing your passion for what you do. It's very prevalent, and it's exciting to speak to you about it. So back in December, you signed a collaboration with NEC Argentina to demonstrate substantial cost savings for the large-scale smart city surveillance control rooms from the project. Could we find out a bit more about this venture, please?
Sure, yeah, look, we were really excited with that because NEC is one of the largest integrators of video surveillance solutions in the world. They're present in almost every market. They do very large, complex integrations of different camera systems with different software solutions, and they provide that in a packaged, integrated sort of solution environment for their end customers. Now, in South America, city surveillance is far more ubiquitous than it is here in Australia. If we looked at how many cameras there are in Perth City, which is where I'm based right now, it's a tiny fraction of what you might see in a similar cityscape environment within Buenos Aires, for example, which is where we're collaborating with NEC. So camera surveillance has become a very, very important aspect of council security and safety situations, and the councils within the South American environment have their own police forces. It goes beyond what you might see in the state police here in Australia. So the really interesting thing about that opportunity is we're working with one of the largest integrators in the world. They have a very specific user requirement, which is they want to actively surveil these 1,600 odd cameras that are operating within this particular council area. And they need a solution that scales up their operator efficiency. Right now, most operators in this control room, there's about 60 of them, they're allocated roughly 30 cameras each. And we believe that with Icetana, we can push that to 150, 200 cameras. So you're talking about a 6 to 8-fold improvement in productivity for each of the operators within the control room, which means more cameras can get out there, more events can be found, and people can be safer in that environment. And that's part of our mantra. We're fanatical about anomaly detection, which is finding weird things and putting it in front of operators. But what we really want is we want the operators to feel like superheroes. We want them to feel like they've got as many eyes as there are cameras coming into the screen in front of them, which is like 150, 250 eyes across their particular environment. We want them going home to their families at the end of the day and saying, I found an amazing event today. I saved 3 people, or I got an ambulance out there because this person's been knocked off their bicycle and it got there 5 minutes earlier and we saved a life. That's our mission, at Icetana. We want to have these feel-good stories coming out of the work that we do and scaling up the capacity of our customers to find solutions to find things that make people feel safe.
Exactly, and that makes it all worthwhile. I totally agree with you. Thank you very much for sharing there, Matt. So Icetana also recently announced a placement of 2.7 million Australian dollars to accelerate growth opportunities. So what are your prospects that you're envisioning in this space?
So beyond NEC, we're very active in Japan as well. So Japan's a really interesting market from a guarding services perspective, and our focus is in this area of guarding services. The reason why we like that is when you outsource responsibility for surveilling cameras to a third party, there's kind of an expectation from the person who outsources that things will be done in real time. So you need to be able to respond and find events and get out there quickly. Much higher than if you had that same facility in-house where you can kind of say, oh, well, look, we're recording, you've given me the budget for that, but don't expect me to find things in real time, there's too many cameras. So you get rid of these excuses, and when it's given to a third party, that guarding services company, and they might be somebody like the really big players, people like Securitas and G4S or Prosegur. These are companies you might have heard of, driving around, in their armored cars and so on. They have central monitoring stations where all these camera feeds come in and the operators are responsible for identifying events in real time. Now, the Japanese market, the reason I mentioned that is because guards the population in Japan is getting older. It's very, very hard to recruit guards. People don't necessarily want to be guards. But if you've ever been to Japan, pretty much every building you walk into, there's a man in a proper guarding suit. He's got his white gloves on and he's bowing and welcoming you into the facility. It's a very common sight within the Japanese environment, and yet it's very, very hard to recruit people to do that job. So the Japanese building owners and people who run the shopping malls and so on are looking for technological solutions to replace their guards out in the field with cameras that are able to monitor that environment so they can have less guards but a faster response when things happen. And that's the unique use case that we're planning to build on. So we have very clear feedback from our customers that when you sign up to Icetana, for every 100 cameras or so that you add onto the system, you can save a guard in the field. And that's a direct ROI return for becoming a customer of Icetana. So we are very excited when we talk to people who are committed to real-time surveillance and who have lots of guards out in the field, because we can say those guards can be far more efficiently deployed. You will catch more events and you will save money because you don't need as many of them. And that's the type of opportunities that we want to trade on during the year ahead. But in addition to that, I mentioned earlier the research that we were doing in terms of the new product and the new product capabilities to understand and interpret what's happening from a behavioural perspective in front of the cameras. That is a huge opportunity for growth for us. So during the course of this year, we have 2 major foci, I guess. One is that we're going to increasingly sell on this return on investment type of approach, particularly to guarding services companies. And number 2 is to roll out the new version of our product, which allows us to detect far more interesting events and become much more relevant to the operators that we are providing our services to.
Well, that sounds fantastic. You're turning those excuses into solutions, but not only that, you're turning them into cost-effective solutions. So sounds like a win-win.
Great.
Thanks, Matt. So in your opinion, while we've got you here in the hot seat, what was the biggest milestone Icetana achieved in 2021 to build a strong presence in the global guarding services market, please?
So look, we signed a number of fairly big accounts during the course of 2021, but our Q4 results in the financial years, that was going through sort of March through to June, we upped our annualized recurring revenue by 88%. And that was a combination of rolling out new customers and getting those implemented. Many things have been delayed because of COVID. We couldn't get onto the facilities to roll out. We had to put in place new procedures for remote installation of our software and so on. We managed to get a number of clients up and running, as well as renegotiate the terms of a number of our larger agreements. so that revenues bumped up dramatically. That was a big achievement within 2021. Of course, the capital raise was very important. We got that away as Omicron started to hit, and we're very happy to have funding to run us out for a minimum of 18 months and well beyond that, I believe, if we continue to grow our sales as we have been. And so the big achievements included signing a integrated resort complex in Singapore that was a very valuable 3-year deal. Rolling out to some new shopping malls, the Tandem Group specifically in Kuwait in the Middle East, as well as a number of new clients in Japan and some enormous opportunities in South America. So we always like opening up new territories and new vertical markets, and we signed a number of those through the course of 2021. Perhaps the thing I'm most proud of is the team. We've built an incredibly committed team. We have literally no turnover that is not scheduled turnover, and the team are building some just amazing products right now. So I'm super excited about 2022 as our year of growth. We're going to be focusing principally on revenue growth, and that capital raise is oriented around that side of the business.
Well, it sounds like you're putting Perth on the map. That sounds fantastic. Coming out of sunny Perth, where a lot of business seems to be developing these days. So that sounds great.
Thank you.
And finally, we are reaching the end of the discussion now, Matt. How is the global guarding services market poised for growth in 2022, in your opinion?
Well, look, with COVID has come a lot more risk environments, let's say. The people who had less have got less now. People who had more tend to be having more now. People are a little more desperate. There's also, a lot of, when you think about everybody walking around in a mask, right? In the old days, bandits used to wear masks. If you want to steal from somebody, you've already got a mask on, So we've seen a number of sort of serious incidents taking place within our client sites where people have got masks on, and they're very, very hard to identify in that environment. So spending on health and safety, and particularly on physical security safety, it's growing at about 15% per annum. The guarding services market is booming. The camera market is booming, but within that, the analytics market to understand what's happening in front of those cameras is growing at about 27% per annum from a $850 million base. So it's a hugely fast growing industry. It's very, very interesting for us. And whilst, I don't wish upon anyone the fact that it's a higher risk environment out there, we're there to help make the world safer. So, that's our mantra.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your valuable insights and your passion for what you do. And best of luck moving forward with your research and working with the university's studies in AI. Thanks
very much. It was great to be on the show.
And that was a fabulous show, and I hope you enjoyed our chat today with Mr. Matt Macfarlane from Icetana, and we thank you for your time. This is Sage signing off for now.